This is the Data Distribution Centre for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It's where you can come to find a lot of the data that goes into the IPCC assessment reports so that you can use it for your own impact studies and adaptation analyses. So here is the homepage, the site, and the site does a number of things. It provides guidance on how to use the data and a little bit of information about the IPCC assessment process. And also it allows you to navigate to the data itself and download it, and in some cases visualize it as well. So what I'm going to do today is show you through the website to the guidance material and to the different sorts of data that we hold. So first of all, the guidance part of the site. There's a navigation menu on the left-hand side that allows you to get to the different parts of the site. So here we see the guidance, and if I click on this, it allows me to see the different sorts of material that I've got and also information about how to best interpret it. So for today's sake, I'm going to show you something about the new scenario process, the new scenarios for the upcoming IPCC assessment report. What's different about it is that in the past, we've run integrated assessment models to get socioeconomic scenarios, and then we've used those as input to climate models to see what the climate implications of those socioeconomic futures are. With the new assessment report, instead we're looking at climate forcing scenarios and then working out what emissions and concentrations would yield those forcings, and then what socioeconomic scenarios would fit with those. So there's a parallel approach. So this guidance material on the new scenario process goes into more detail about how this works, but there's a really good diagram that reveals it. I'll just scroll down to show you. And we can see that in the past there's been a very sequential approach, and part of the problem with this is that your climate models can't really adapt to the changing socioeconomic scenarios, and similarly the socioeconomic scenarios can't adapt to the output from the climate models. But also it takes time. It takes about 10 years to go from the initial production of scenarios through to running climate models and then doing impacts analyses. What we wanted to do this time is to make that process faster and also to allow interaction between socioeconomic modelling and climate modelling, and that's demonstrated with this diagram of the sequential approach, and there's more information about that in the guidance material on the DDC. Okay, so then scrolling back up the page, we can find ourselves at the navigation menu again. And we're going to take ourselves out of this AR5 section and have a look at some of the data that we have on the Data Distribution Centre. So we've got 3 different kinds of data to show the users. There's observation data, and there's a simulation data, and then there's some synthesis, some analysis that we've done on the data that's available for users to look at. So first, the observations. So I click here on the navigation menu on Data Observations. What I see is a page with some text about what I can see, and that's reflected in the navigation menu. Now, one of the things to notice about the navigation is that observations here is highlighted in a kind of lilac colour, and then all the pages in this section are also highlighted with lilac. So the colour coding of the headings helps you know where you are on the website. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the temperature data that we have, observation data on the Data Distribution Centre. So if I click on physical climate, and then to the data that was used in the 4th assessment report, this is the data that we have on the website at the moment, because we only have data from the previous assessment reports up until now. We're waiting for new data to come in next year. So clicking there, I can see now some global mean temperature data sets, and we'll have a look at one of them. This is the Climatic Research Unit temperature data set. Now this takes us off the site to the Climatic Research Unit pages, and if I scroll down, you can see a lovely plot that shows us how temperature has changed over the last 150 years. So to return to the Data Distribution Centre, we need to click the back button now. And we can scroll down to more observations from this CRU temperature dataset. So here we see a table that has got dates for different time periods and the different variables for observations which you can access and download. So we just need to select our time period, and we need to select the variable we want and the kind of format we want the data to be in, and then get the data. And you'll see a registration form. We'd like users to tell us something about who they are, a name and an email address, and a little bit of information about why you're getting the data from the website. We use it just for ourselves, and also if there's any changes that might affect people who've used this data, then we can get in contact with you. So once I've filled in these web forms, then I can click download to download the data. So first of all, I fill in an email address. And my name. And some information about why I want to see the data. Then I click to confirm that I've read the terms and conditions, and then I can download the data. And I'll see a pop-up box to decide where I should save the data on my computer. So now I use the back buttons to go back to the website. You use the back button to come back to the website, and you'll find yourself on the page you were when you left. Now we'll use the navigation menu to have a look at some simulation data. So I click on the left-hand side, and simulations are in green. So I'm going to show you some socioeconomic data that we have on the website. So I click on the SRES emission scenarios. And I'll see some information about SRES. So what we see is a tree diagram that has the different SRES scenarios represented as branches of 4 different possible socioeconomic futures, depending on whether economic considerations are considered more important than environmental considerations, or whether as a world we develop regional solutions or global solutions to climate change. Now, when I scroll down, I can look at some of the socioeconomic data itself. There's a link here that takes us to some data tables, and we can see our different scenarios on the left-hand side and different world regions at the top. And I can just click on one of these and see what these scenarios entail. These are available as either HTML or Excel format. So I'm looking at an HTML table for the world, for one of these solutions, and we can see time across the top, and then different prices for energy, commodities, and also cumulative CO2 emissions. And these are what are used to force the climate models. So now I can close this pop-up window and go back to the main website again. And scroll back up to the top so I can see the navigation menu. And I'm going to look at some different kind of simulation data, this time simulation data about the Earth system. Now we've got different kinds of Earth system data. We've got Earth system data that's monthly and also some long-term meaned data over 20 and 30-year time periods. So I'm going to show you how to access the monthly global climate model data. So first of all, I can see a list of data for the different assessment reports. The data that we have, the most current data, is the fourth assessment report. There's also data from the third assessment report, the second assessment report, and the first assessment report. We'll look at the fourth assessment report, most recent. And links to that data are in the navigation menu and also on the web page itself. I'll get you there from the navigation menu. So we click on AR4 2007 SRES scenarios. And what we'll see is links to the data. There's data organised by the centre, that's the modelling group that produced the data. And then also across the top we can see the different scenarios that those data were simulating. And I click on one of these runs. So for this one it's the pre-industrial control, PI control, from the Canadian Centre. And it takes me to a web page actually based in Hamburg where I can download the data. So now I'm going to go back to the main website and we'll have a look for some different climate data. So we also hold climate data that's averaged over decades, so over 20 years and over 30 years. This is the GCM output period averages. And again, I can see the data that's from the different assessment reports. And again, we'll have a look at the AR4 2007. So what we see is another data table with the data organised by model or by scenarios, if you're interested in the different scenarios, or maybe you're more interested in a particular variable. So we'll have a look at the pre-industrial control. Here we go, PICTL. And then we get to another data table. This time the data is organised by model on the left-hand side and by the different variables that you can see. And then we just select the model that we're interested in. So this is a CCCMA, this Canadian Climate Modelling Centre. And then we select the variable that we're interested in and then the meaning period. So I want to look at, say, air pressure at sea level over 20-year means. I click there and I've got a data file to download. So to get back to the DDC, I'll just close this dialog box. And when I scroll up, I see that I've lost my navigation menu, so I'll have to use the back button. Great, so finally I'm going to show you some global mean data. So that's GCM output global means for AR4. Now this is a lovely little data table now where you can see global mean temperature or precipitation for the different scenarios. And if I was to get data for AR2, then I'll get a file to download. So cancel that and go back to the main navigation menu. And now we're going to look at some of the data synthesis, some of the analysis that has been done on the AR4, the 4th assessment report. So what we see here is a map of the different regions of the world for which this analysis data is available. And what we'll end up seeing are some plots that show us how temperature and precipitation are likely to change for different seasons. So this map gives us the different regions, and I have to scroll down to the bottom of the page to get to the data. Here we go. We'll view the regional scatter diagrams. What we end up seeing is a data table with the different regions that were labelled on the map. So let's have a look at Europe, Southern Europe and North Africa. There's some information about what you're going to see, and then we can have a look at the scatter plots for the different time periods. So there's 2010 to 2039, 2040 to 2069, and 2070 to 2099. So we'll look at the last one. Now these are displayed sideways, but what we see is one scatter plot for each season. The colours of the dots represent the different scenarios, and the symbols themselves represent the different modelling groups that contributed data that went into these plots. And what we can see is that for nearly all these seasons, increasing temperatures, we'll expect to see much less precipitation in this region. And there's agreement across scenarios and also across different modelling groups, so we can be quite certain about this predicted change because there's agreement between the different models and also the different scenarios. So now I'm going to go back to the main Data Distribution Centre website. There's a tremendous wealth of information on the Data Distribution website. We've got climate observations and climate modelling data, and socioeconomic observations and modelling data too. And it's really worth taking some time to find your way around the website to the data that you need. There's great guidance material too on how to make the most of that data and how to use it in particular studies. And finally, we also have a search facility. You can use this if you know what you're looking for to navigate directly to the information that you need.